Hey, welcome to my video for singing. We're going to have a lot of time on our hands, so I'm sure you can watch this over and over again at your own leisure whenever you want to practice. Now, the first thing we usually start off with in a class for vocals is learning how to breathe. Even though we all breathe normally, we just want to learn how to breathe properly for singing. You can have a lot of great singers out there that will be very successful with limited knowledge of breathing, but it's always good to adopt good habits and keep them. So, getting right into it, before we start with breathing, we just want to make sure we're relaxed, right? So, what does that mean? That means we don't want to be tense. We just want to relax. So, relax your shoulders, relax your neck, relax everything in your body, and stand straight. Right? Good posture. We don't want our head jutting out. We don't want our head to the side. We don't want this, right? We just want to stand somewhat neutral, okay? So let's talk about a few different kinds of breathing. Usually when I say to somebody, take a deep breath, more times than not, what they're going to do is this. All right, take a deep breath. And this happens, right? So what happens? Our stomach tucks in, our chest pulls out, our shoulders stand up, and we get really tense, right? Like a Frankenstein. We don't want to do that. What that is called is clavicular breathing, right? So our clavicle, right here, our collarbone, this action is called clavicular breathing when we do this, right? We don't want to do that. We're going to try to do something else, okay? So I want everybody to keep their shoulders nice and relaxed. Put your hand right here, right? Tap on that breastbone, that sternum, and right here there's that soft spot. Put your hand right over that, all right? Now let's relax and take a few breaths without thinking about anything, okay? Right? So what happens? It's normal breathing. So I'll turn to the side for you. If I'm breathing, my hand does this. This is normal. When I inhale through my nose and exhale, my hand goes out and then in. So inhale, it expands like a balloon, and exhale, it goes back in, right? So we're going to try this a few times. We're not going to raise our shoulders. When I say take a big deep breath, we're going to inhale through our nose, right to our hand. So just like this. Not this way, right? We want to avoid that. So this is diaphragmatic breathing, okay? So hand right here over our diaphragm, and then we breathe in. Then we breathe out. We breathe in. Then we breathe out. Now, if you think about your lung capacity, we want to fill it up because your lungs don't only expand, they expand this way too. They don't only go to the side, they go down as well. So what we want to do is think about every time we breathe in and this expands, we want to think about the air going all the way to the bottom of our lungs, okay? So we breathe in, breathe out. And we don't want to breathe out till we go back to where we started, right? We want to go further, right? So breathe in, breathe out. So from a side view, what I want to accomplish is breathing in with my diaphragm here. It expands and then it contracts, okay? We want to get all the air out. So another way to go further with this is to think about our ribs, right? So what are the jobs of our ribs? What do they do? They protect our lungs, right? So when we breathe in, this is what happens to our ribs. Our ribs kind of expand and rise a little bit, right? And then when we exhale, when we breathe out, they come back together. So let's take a few deep breaths in and acknowledge that, okay? Let's feel that. So here we go. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Okay? So what our ribs are doing when our lungs fill with air, they expand. So our ribs expand with them. Okay? So what we want to try to do is focus on thinking about what our ribs are doing. So when we exhale, our ribs come back together. Now when they come back, they're not expanding like this and coming back together greatly, but they're flexible, right? So when they come back together, when our ribs are full of air, they actually assist in the exhale, right? They bring that space together and they help the lungs exhale the air, right? They minimize that space. So it's all the process of breathing. So what we want to do, we want to take our ribs and expand them. I gotta pull my shirt back here. So when I think about expanding my ribs, I don't want to bring my shoulders up. I think about somebody pressing on the bottom of my ribs and my ribs pushing out, right? Some people like to say if there's like a band or a rope around your ribs and you want to break that open. So let's take a second and try to feel that, okay? So when I breathe in, my ribs are expanding out this way, right? They're making room for my lungs to expand into that space. So we'll try again. And this whole cavity becomes bigger, okay? This is going to be called costal breathing. Costal means ribs, okay? So we started off with clavicular. We don't want to do that. We went to diaphragmatic breathing. And now we're doing costal. Okay, so costal are your ribs. So we're going to expand our ribs just like that. Okay? When we breathe in, our ribs expand and expand and expand. Now when we breathe out, I want to see how long I can exhale with keeping my ribs open. Now this is going to sound a little tricky at first, or going to feel a little tricky at first, but when I keep my ribs open, I'm going to breathe out slow. Okay, now whenever I feel like my air is getting lower, then my ribs will drop back down and squeeze in. So the idea is to expand your ribs, and with your intercostal muscles, keep your ribs open. That way, when you breathe out slowly at your own pace, you're regulating your breathing, you're regulating your exhale. Your ribs aren't forcing the air out quicker. You're holding your ribs open. That way, when you are done with your exhale, they close when you're done. It's really good for holding notes. You want to stay relaxed. You want to be able to control your breathing on the exhale, because that's when tone happens, right? So if I have my keyboard here and I breathe in and then out, I'll just go ooh. It takes air to make that tone. So what we want to do is have the most constant flow of air and good breath support, right? So you have breath management and breath support. So we'll talk about that in the next video. But for now, we're going to start with those 3 breathing observations, right? Breathing into our clavicle, or breathing clavicular, right? When our shoulders go up and our tummy tucks in, we don't want to do that. So relax your shoulders. Observe diaphragmatic breathing, which is when you breathe in and your hand expands here on the top of your belly, right below your xiphoid process, which is the bottom part of your sternum, right? And then we'll observe our costal breathing. So when we inhale, our ribs expand. And then on the exhale, we keep our ribs open. And then they come together when we're done with the exhale. So the next video, what we're going to end up doing is called diaphragmatic costal breathing. And that's going to be furthering our study of expanding our ribs and then relaxing our diaphragm. And then we'll get into some lower abdominal breathing also. But for now, let's just focus on not doing this anymore, right? Observing our diaphragm and then observing our ribs expanding. And then you have to practice keeping your ribs expanded while you exhale. It's going to be a little tricky, but I know you can do it. All of my students end up doing it and they do it very well. So thank you so much. I'll make another video and we'll continue this thought process on different types of breathing. And there's so much more to get into, but we'll just start with that, okay? So observe clavicular breathing, diaphragmatic, and the beginning of costal breathing. Thank you so much. Stay safe and get to work.